This is Megan Brenway. I am the founder of the Upstate real estate team, and I am a licensed real estate agent. We're with Keller Williams, Hudson Valley North, getting all the important stuff out of the way right at the beginning. And thank you all for joining me and some of the team members for this talk on what is it like to move upstate. So I have a bunch of questions that everybody already sent, which is great. And I'm gonna do something kind of weird, which is I'm looking at my computer to look at the chat screen. So I'm gonna look over here for that because I'm on the iPad and then. So yeah, so thank you all for joining. I guess it would be helpful just to start off by saying that I moved here myself roughly 4 years ago. So it's been some time, full time. My husband and I came here. We were coming upstate for probably 6 or 7 years before then as weekenders, not with our own household, just Airbnbs. And basically, we came up here to a wedding, and it was in High Falls, and I can like literally remember the moment I totally fell in love with this area. And it was driving down from Stone Ridge to High Falls, and there was just like this hill, and you could see the beautiful mountains, and I don't know, it's like my heart stopped, and I could not believe how beautiful this area was. And yeah, we just kind of like kept coming back up here. And at the time, you know, for the next 6 years, I didn't drive. I lived in Chicago and then Colorado in high school and got my license, but I was young when I graduated high school, never had a car, lived in Berlin, lived in London, lived in New York, like definitely not places you needed or wanted to have a car for most of the time. And that was one of my biggest fears. And I can tell you that was one of the things that really kept us from thinking about moving up here, was this idea that you'd have to drive all the time. Which at the time sounded like a terrible idea. And now I love driving around here more than almost anything. So yeah, like I wasn't, you know, I mean, we lived in Aspen when I was in high school. So I was used to like a small beautiful place with a lot of amenities and all of the goods and bads of, you know, a lot of vacation homes and where do teachers live when, like, you know, houses cost $2 million and all of that. And that was like that was in the late 80s, early 90s. So that was a while ago. It wasn't even nearly as expensive as it is now. So this kind of environment, I guess, is familiar to me. I left Aspen thinking like, I only ever want to be in the city. I only want to be in New York. And I loved living in New York, started in Union Square, moved to Park Slope, different parts of Park Slope. And then we were in Clinton Hill for like the last 8 or 9 years that we were there. So for those of you from the city, which is probably everyone here, that is, you know, can also give you some geographic orientation. So Jen, I'm just wondering if you could, I'm not the host on this and I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So I just want to make sure everybody can type into the chat and that'll be public. I feel like talking into a vacuum otherwise. Oh, there. Oh, everybody's just not typing. No reason to type, right? Oh, nice. I love this. Thank you guys. Yeah, it's so much more fun. I was like, am I talking into an actual blank room here? There's somehow like hundreds of people signed up for this and no one's here. So I guess what we wanted to do is, like, we know that like our team works with a lot of people who are considering, you know, it went very quickly from like everybody wants a weekend home that they could occasionally rent out to a lot of people were staying in their weekend homes who are our clients who we help find weekend homes, to a lot of people saying like, hey, for the next year at least, we want to be up here full time, and we don't know what's going to happen after that, but we need to like skedaddle from the city right now. And a lot of people are able to work remotely. That's the big change. Not able have to work remotely right now and will be able to later. And there's just like a bunch of things that are happening. And what I can say, and I think what I want to start by saying is that like, we did not intend to move here full time. My business at the time, I was doing, I had started a business doing international higher ed marketing and branding. So I was flying all over the world. I was like doing 2 international trips a month. I was speaking about how you brand yourself for international student recruitment and helping universities and countries and cities and regions like think about how they can attract international students. And that was what I did. I mean, I studied political science, this is doing real estate was always something I wanted to do, never something I did do in the city. And my husband was taught at Pratt for 15 years, loved living where we lived in Clinton Hill. Like we loved it. My best friend from college was across the street. One of his best friends was 2 blocks away. Rob in particular, I remember he said that like, what's the point of living upstate? If you've seen one tree, you've seen them all, And so this was not like, we were not like, oh, we want to be upstate. Like, let's do this. We wanted a place up here. We wanted to spend more time here. So when we came, we bought our house in Kerhonkson, cabin 8. But before we closed, we decided we could try living here full time, that I could run my marketing business. I could start doing real estate. Rob could commute to Pratt. So we had that experience also. And it was like honestly, it was a very spontaneous decision. It was like straight up, like we went to like, it's kind of a longer story, but we basically went out to an annoying brunch in Carroll Gardens or Cobble Hill somewhere. And Rob was like, I'm kind of done. Like, I'm done. Like, I just don't want to like wait in line and have people like shove into me in the sidewalk and pay a lot for brunch. And I was like, well, crap, I think we could, why not try it? So we just rented our apartment out in the city. We owned it for 2 years while we like tried our life upstate. And the thing that I would say is funny is when I think back to it is, so let me just also say this whole process, the process of buying and moving to something so different, it's never going to be like, yeah, I made a great decision and like, I feel great about it and I never have to think about it again, right? Like it can't be like that. Like buying a house is like, you have all kinds of feelings anyways. And especially because Brooklyn was so tied to my identity to like be an urban person and be living in New York and be like living in Brooklyn. And it was like, so it was really weird. So literally, and I can just tell you this, that like after we closed, the first time we went to our beautiful house in Kerhonkson, I literally cried the entire way we turned off of 209, which is like one of the major roads, all the way till we got to our house. It's like 12 minutes of like hysterical crying, thinking that like we had done the dumbest thing ever and that I would be like alone and I don't know, and like kind of like, I think I felt like I would just disappear somehow as a person. So that's it. I also spent every summer, I'll say, in going to my grandparents' lake house in Indiana, Lake Wawasee. Yay, Midwest. And even at the time, like I was always identified as an urban person. So, I was like, why would anybody live in a small place? I don't get it. I was kind of scared of rural places and didn't really understand, like, if you had the option to live in a city, why you would live in a small place. So even though we lived in Aspen and I loved it, it was like, it was kind of uneasy in some ways for me. And then we moved here and I totally felt like I was going to be pioneer woman, right? Like I was like, we're now living in Kerhonkson, and I would like, winter came and I would get up in the morning at 5 a.m. and I would get the wood from the wood pile and bring it in and like stir the embers of the fire and throw more logs on to get the fire burning. And like all of that was totally unnecessary. Like we totally had just normal heat. Also, like, bring the logs in, dumbass. Like, why wait till 5 a.m.? Why wait till 5 a.m.? Like, just have them in the night before, like, get a basket. So, like, I don't know. I think I was just, like, had, like, a moment, like, had, like, 3 months of, like, thinking I was a pioneer woman and not realizing I was just living in a place with more space. And what happened was that Rob actually kind of had more of a difficult transition, I would say. And he would drive to, he's so used to like stopping at the bodega on the corner and getting a cup of coffee, having that little chat with people. So he would like literally drive to the gas station, Stewart's, near us in Kerhonkson, and go get a cup of coffee and have like a chat with the people, and like got to be friends with all of them and taught them little like British English sayings and things, which was super, it was super sweet. So, eventually I was like, oh, right. Like I started meeting people pretty quickly actually. And I know that is one of the biggest topics here. So I'll just give you guys the brief our story thing and then we'll jump into the questions. But I did start meeting people. We started meeting people pretty darn quickly. Like as soon as we knew we were moving, all these people were like, oh, do you know this person? Do you know this person? My cousin's there, my friend's there, or second, blah, 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 blah. And so we just reached out to people. And within like minutes, we had an amazing community of friends and, you know, kind of other people that we would hang out with, that we would see, and like real proper friends, like family type of friends. And it was just so different than what I expected. So that was, and I'll say this right now, and I'll say it again later, that the social aspect of being up here is absolutely was the most surprising and different from what I expected it to be. Like I sort of was like, we'll be alone, we'll be more creative, it'll be like, you know, we'll just kind of like have a more peaceful existence, and I'll go, you know, I'll jump in and out of the city and see my friends, and they'll come up and visit me. And what happened was that like, when you move to a place that a lot of other people have, you know, moved to, and I will say a lot of my friends are people who've also moved up from the city. There's just like a common shared experience there. If they've made the decision to leave New York City and move up here, it's not because they're like, oh, I want to like work harder. I'm just like, you know, that's not it generally. Like they may work really hard, but it's usually a lifestyle thing. So what I found is that it actually became super easy to see everyone. So it's like, why don't you come on over for dinner? And you just like get in your car and drive to someone's house for dinner, and they have a big kitchen and a deck, and you sit in front of the fireplace, and it's just like super easy. Like it's literally easier than when I would try and see like another friend like 4 stops away on the G train, where I'd have to be like, are you busy? When are you coming back from work? Is your train late from there? Is your train late from here? Oh, you're working late. Oh, okay, no problem. Shoot, I got on the G train, but then it like diverted and now I'm somewhere else. Now it's an hour later. We're going to a restaurant and like we have to wait outside. Like it just is none of that. It's so easy. It's easy, easy, easy. And you're like, let's go hiking. Let's hang out. Let's take a walk. Let's hang out with the dogs. And my husband and I don't have kids. And I know that that's a lot of, you know, people meet other parents, but I've experienced this with, I mean, it was literally zero problem for us meeting people. And we now have, basically we're invited to do so many things. And this was even at the beginning, like we're invited out to so many more things than ever before, that it's kind of wild. Like we have to really, like I have been working like kind of an animal for the past few months, years, whatever. So it's just like hard to do all the fun stuff. But there's a lot of fun stuff that we get invited to do, which is great. So that's like I would say that is that's been one of the biggest things. And I know that like, so one of the primary questions that people sent in was like, how do you meet people? And what's the hardest thing about transitioning from city living? And I think that so meeting people is, again, like it's sort of, you can volunteer at an organization, you can, it's kind of like what you would do in the city, I guess, but here it's so small that if you meet somebody, you're like likely to see them again at the store, or like they'll go, oh, do you know that person? Oh, great. You know that person. And then you just kind of build relationships more easily, I think. So, I joined an exercise place, 30 minutes of everything, that I haven't been to in months, 30 minutes of everything, which I love. And, that was one of the places where I got like a sense of like, I would see people that I'd start to see people that I recognized in the little shops, and going to the little shops and restaurants and talking to the owners, talking to the farmers at the farm stands. Like these are a lot of the people that I would see in Fort Greene Park even, but because you're seeing them again and again, you actually end up getting to know people in a completely different way. And it's one of the best things about being up here. I love it. And there's so many interesting people doing so many interesting things. And yeah, that's what I would say is that is, to me, that has been the single best part of moving up here. Well, maybe. I really, really love the nature. I really do. I didn't realize how much I would love it or how good it would make me feel until we started living here more. So the hardest thing of transitioning from city living, so here's like the weird thing, is that all the things that I thought would be hard kind of weren't. Like, it's like a light switch went off, and actually everything just felt super easy. It's like, oh, I want to do my laundry. Great. Like, let me go do my laundry. You know, like, I'll just go into my house and put my laundry in my laundry thing. Like, oh, I want to go to that awesome place for brunch. Great. I'm not like thinking about like, do I have to go at like 10, 15, like, I want to see a friend. Let me just like call them and see if they want to go for a walk. And driving was what I thought would be the hardest thing. And it was like, I took driving, it was fun, hilarious. I took driving lessons. I took driving lessons because we thought it was going to be a weekend home. So I literally just made the woman take me up and down the FDR. And I was like, this is the part that terrifies me. Just up and down the FDR, like, let's just do it. And my driving instructor was hilarious. Her primary lesson for me was to just like tailgate all the time. She was like, do not let an inch between you and that other car. Otherwise people are going to get in, they're going to get in, they're going to get in. And I'm like, I cannot believe my primary lesson on the FDR is to tailgate. But anyways, you know what? I just put like a jillion miles in, and now I can drive well, and I don't think about it, and I love it so much. Love it. But I guess that was hard. You know, I guess I did spend probably 3 months thinking like I was going to die every time I drove, or like my husband was going to die every time he drove, because it just seemed so foreign to me to like get into a car. You know, like, it was just like, this seems bizarre. Like, why are you in this huge machine and everyone's going so fast and they're deer and things? Now, again, I just don't think about it. Oh, are the roads cleared quickly after a snowstorm? 100%. Yeah. So that was the other thing. In winter, we're like, oh, we're going to be snowed in. That was another question that we got a lot, is like, what's winter like? So people were like, well, you might get it there now, but you're going to hate it in winter. Literally, that was like the first few months here. It was really irritating. And guess what? Winter's damn delightful. It's so lovely. It's so quiet and beautiful. And the roads they clear the roads all night. People need cars here. So like, you get up in the morning, you're like, yay, I'm snowed in. And you're like, oh shit, no, I'm not. Like, I'm definitely not. I can just like go out and drive and do whatever I need to do. And things move slower, and I don't know, we started going to bed like freakily early because it's like pitch black at 5 o'clock. And yeah, it was pretty great. So I'm seeing a question about diversity, and I'm going to say that there are a bunch of questions that you guys have that we can't answer because of fair housing questions. So anything related to race, religion, familial status, military status. I mean, there's a bunch of things that like, because if you think about it, there's a very good reason. So I like to make assumptions that everybody asking me that question would love living in a diverse area, right? Like, we moved from the border of Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy. That was the world I knew. But we can't assume that that's what everybody's asking for. They may be asking like, because they don't want diversity. So as realtors, I can't answer that question. I can't, unfortunately. What I can say, progressive and liberal-minded, I can't answer either, unfortunately. What I can say is that you can look on, what I would do is look at, look at where other where other people similar to you are moving to, ask people who are there. And then you can also, again, like, talk to shop owners, talk to people and be like, hey, what's it like to live here as someone who is, or as someone who likes, can't talk about schools. There's a bunch of stuff as realtors we can't talk about. And I know it's really important. And I would say that one of the things that is true up here is that it's very mixed, right? It's like very mixed. Like, you will drive along and you will see, like in the last election, I'd see a Bernie sign, a Trump sign, eventually a Hillary sign, but it's mixed, and you're not used to seeing that kind of a mix in Brooklyn. I wasn't. So look at the census, and you can see data on race, which will give you some indication of diversity. We have a link to Black-owned businesses in Instagram, and that gives you some sense of where there are at least Black-owned businesses, kind of concentrated. But again, they're very, there aren't that many businesses, right? So like, not seeing Black-owned businesses in a town that only has 4 businesses may not be an indication of general lack of diversity, or it is. So, yeah, that's a tricky one. And I don't know if I have to learn more about the cities with redlining. I don't know that any rural areas were redlined. But, you know, I would certainly think places like, you know, Kingston or Newburgh, some of the bigger cities might have had issues with that for sure. And I don't know that, which is kind of bad, which is bad. So one of the things that we would say also in terms of meeting people is like really just reach out to people on Instagram. If you like their shop, you like their vibe, you see that they're there, say like, hey, what's it like to live there? You know what I mean? What's it like to live there? Like do that. That I've met so many people like that and who become real friends. So that's a good way to meet people anyway. So, and I am 100% just FYI, I am not discounting any of these things as real concerns. I am just saying that I can't talk about it. So someone did just ask about, as a single Black woman, my mom is terrified I'm gonna be murdered in a rural area by a crazy racist. So what you can do is also look at crime statistics and see the relative lack of murder in general that happens. So it's, I mean, again, I wish I could say more. I will also say that I was kind of scared to just like be in rural areas in general. I really was, like, I just thought, I don't know, like maybe I would get murdered just by somebody anyways. But yeah, that's not like, we have met tons of people who have grown up here, who live here, who are super nice, and they are like, I mean, that sounds like a jerk thing to say, but I mean, it's not like, as somebody who always wanted to be in an urban area and always was in an urban area, I think that I did have some preconceptions about what it's like to be in a rural area and what it's like, what people are like who grow up in a rural area. And this has completely changed that for me also. I would definitely say that. So the biggest differences between living upstate compared to New York, that's another kind of question that came up. Like I used to like hate people who would like say anything bad about New York. I really did. I'd be like, shut up. Go to your dumb spot with your McMansion and your whatever, like drive your big car, you environmental terrorist. Like, I don't know. I was very defensive. Like I seriously could have been like Brooklyn borough mayor. And now that I'm here, I'm like, dang, it seems so hard to live in New York. It's seriously like once you leave, seems really hard. Like taking the subway places is like, especially, by the way, I mean, that's the thing. I lived in New York from like 98 till 4 years ago. And so I saw the subway get so much more crowded, right? Like that happened. So that is like factually, statistically true. So it used to be I would take the subway and I would love it and it'd be no problem. And then increasingly I would have to like really think about when I could take it, and then it would be delayed and I would be squashed. And I just like started to really not like that so much. So, oh goodness. Wait, Jen, I just saw you say something. We only have 100 people are allowed in this link. Can we change that? Well, I can't see what your meeting, your thing went away. I don't know if you can change the settings. Over 100 people, who knew? Now we have to upgrade. I did upgrade. Can you just upgrade quickly? Can you try? Anyways, we'll see what we can do. So we're not using a free version. I don't understand. I might be logged in somewhere else. It sucks. But yeah, I probably been logged in the wrong place. Oh, that's so frustrating. We can't talk about schools, the thing that we can't talk about. So go to great, niche has school things, great schools. You just have to look at statistics. It's not something, unfortunately, that we're also allowed to talk about. So anybody who's here can talk about this. You guys, anybody who lives up here, and we can certainly, it's not even that, as real estate agents, we can't even necessarily talk about, putting people together to talk about these things. So it's tricky. Let me say that the rental market is very difficult up here. The rental market is super tough. So, oh, I hear somebody else is talking. And white lanes. I don't know how to make them stop. figure it out. The rental market, so they're basically, Airbnb in particular has really, really limited the rental market. So it is, yeah, it's tricky. It is, it's more than tricky. It's one of the things that's going to be a real problem up here for people who've lived here for a long time, for people who want to move here. If you like, a lot of people write us about long-term rentals and we're just like, there's no secret source. Like Craigslist, hot pads, that's about it. So there just are not many long-term rentals. There is a serious shortage. To give you a sense of it, I have a client, a friend who put a small cottage up for rent in Rosendale and had over 300 inquiries on the first day. And that was for a 12-month unfurnished rental. So it's really hard. It's really hard. That's a tough one. I wish I had something better to say about that. So one of the things that we tell people is like, you might want to buy kind of, like this sounds weird, but you could potentially buy a starter home and then see what you like, see what it's like to live up here, and then move into another home a couple of years later. You do get, there's a capital gains if there are any profits, and I do think prices are going to continue to go up here because of remote working. If you have profits on that, as one person, you're able to exclude $250,000 of capital gains. As a couple, married couple, has to be married, I guess, it's $500,000. So that is a possibility. And I will say that my husband and I, after living in Kerhonkson for 2 years, we moved closer to Kingston because I was driving so much for real estate stuff, and we really wanted to, like, you know, we really wanted to be able, like, I wanted to be able to get to more places, and Kingston is a really convenient place to get to, like, Hudson or Woodstock or wherever, Rhinebeck or Kerhonkson. So we moved over here, and we were going to kind of like move back to Kerhonkson or move part-time. And there are, you know, there are different options. I would say the Airbnb question the Airbnb topic is one for a different session, because I really want to focus on what it's like to move upstate here. There are absolutely towns that are looking to limit it, and it's really town by town. That's what I can tell you. So what I would say, a lot of people have asked about what towns to be in, you know? Well, this relates. So it's sort of like, you know, someone asked like things like doctors, hospitals, services, haircutters, airport access, things for New York City. A lot about public transportation. And oh yeah, just looking here. So public transportation is another one. So these kind of all tie together, right? Like, so it's like, how often are you going to go to the city? That's like question number one. And we were like, my first list of like my dream home was like, it has to be walkable to like amenities. It has to be like near public transportation so I can go in and out of the city quickly. I don't care about any of that stuff anymore. I really don't. Like, I mean, I can get to the city. It's not a big deal. Also, it's, the weird thing is that it starts to seem, when you do it more, it starts to seem less far. So now if I have that, like, I still go to some of my doctors. I still get my hair cut in the city sometimes. You know, I do that stuff. If I do that, I just go in for the day. You know, I just literally, I'll go in, get an appointment, come back. It's like not a big deal anymore. I just listen to podcasts, I do whatever. So for me, public transportation ended up being like, who cares? Like, as long as you're within 2 and 2.5 hours, you have some options, it doesn't matter. Now, if you think you're gonna have to go into the city once or twice a week for work eventually, that's a different story. So on the west side of the river, you have buses, and there's particularly one bus that goes Kingston, Rosendale, New Paltz, New York City, that goes almost every, you know, when pre-COVID, almost every half an hour. So you would just like kind of walk up to the bus and get on it and go. And it takes a, like from Kingston, I think it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. From New Paltz, it's a little bit less. Where we live, we kind of live between Kingston and New Paltz in a little hamlet called Eddyville. So I can drive to Poughkeepsie in a little over 30 minutes and get on Metro North. I can drive to Rhinecliff and get the Amtrak, or I can take the bus from Kingston. So it feels like there's a ton of options. I mostly just drive. There are Ubers and other car services, taxis. They're less common. Obviously, they're like less common here because there are fewer people, but at the bigger stations, you can generally find those. Yeah, I will definitely talk about the prices. So one of the things that we found when we were working with buyers, or we are still working with buyers, and we're trying to figure out how to help more buyers. I know we have a long wait list right now, and it's been challenging to figure out how to work with buyers in this environment and get them homes. But we really, I think, are starting to be able to take people off of the wait list and things. And we realized that a lot of people didn't really care where they lived. Like 80% of people, roughly, were sort of what we call location agnostic. They just want to be in a beautiful place that has like some sense of community, some like-minded people. Again, which we can't address that much. Some good restaurants nearby, a couple cafes, whatever. But there are like, that could describe places in a bunch of different counties. So we ended up working in, you know, Dutchess, Putnam, Ulster, Sullivan, some Greene, some Columbia, some Delaware, some Orange. So, you know, there are a ton of awesome places. That's what I would say, is that like there really are, and I know people who live in all of these places and really love where they live. I think that one consideration when you're living here more full time than if you're a weekender is like, how far do you want to drive to go to a grocery store? Is like 30 minutes too far? Maybe, you know, 15 minutes is not too far. I love, so specific areas where there's a strong artist community. What I can say is that this whole area has a ton of creative people. I mean, they're just, and that has been something that's been true, you know, for centuries in this area. So it's like, you know, artists and creative people have been attracted to rural areas for a long time and wanted to have retreats. And so, you know, there just are, it's one of the things that's been the most interesting to me, and this is happening globally, you know, is that as cities got more and more expensive, artists kind of were like, maybe we need like more space and to go somewhere else. And I mean, I have been amazed at how many people that we have found who have something they like to do other than work. Let's just say that, like other than what they do professionally. And there are a lot of professional artists, filmmakers, writers, whatever, that also live all over here. And, but there's a lot of people who also just like do something professionally and are like super passionate about another thing. And they have a little bit more time and flexibility and money to be able to do that kind of stuff, which is great and interesting. And you know, I was speaking to somebody recently, and again, like how you meet people. Like I went to an event that was for the Ellenville NAACP, a fundraiser in Mountaindale, and saw a bunch of people who I had met at different times and all these ways that I'm talking about. And we're talking to somebody who was thinking about moving to Brooklyn. I mean, from Brooklyn up here. And I was saying how there's a lot of times when I would meet people here and I wouldn't even like know what they did professionally for 6 months, because they would talk about their garden, or like we would take our dogs for a walk, or we would talk about what we were reading or other things like that. So it's interesting. That's also very different. So a lot of people have also asked about there's so many good questions here, but the cost has come up a lot. Like, is this cost going to be just forever that prices are going up? And I think it might be, I'm sorry, at least for the foreseeable future. I'm not sorry for those of you who own homes and want to sell, but I am sorry for those of you who don't yet. I think that, you know, the prices here in this area just got back to the 2008 levels, like last year. So the prices went down and then they went up. And there's specific things about this area. I mean, IBM had a huge presence, and when they left in the late 90s, it made this area really depressed. So when people talk about, you know, I'm not saying this is not, the rising prices are not going to be a problem. They are for a lot of people, and we're going to need as communities to think about housing for everyone for sure. And the average price of a home in Kingston, when they talk about Kingston, you know, being the going up the most in price of any metro area in the country, the average price still is like $265 or something. So it's still, the average price is still much lower than most of the country. So I think, to me, that means that the prices could still go up quite a lot. Now, the one thing I will say is that there are specific types of homes that people who are moving from New York City tend to really like, that other people, that, you know, that kind of concentrates the interest and the increase in prices. So when I look at these, when I look at the price increase, and we think about, like, you know, I posted on Instagram a little while ago that there was only 83 homes sold in May in all of Ulster County, and it was only 123 the year before. The truth is that, like, the homes that most of our buyers would have considered, it's probably like 15 of them. It's not, it's definitely not even 20% of all the homes on the market, because there's something that they don't, you know, like just a ranch home that's close to the road is not going to be, you know, a lot of people that we work with have traditionally said, no way. Anything that looks like it was built in the 90s and hasn't been updated since then, or kind of a McMansion-y home, or at the time anything too big, or anything with a neighbor, or anything on the road. Like, all of these things were like total deal breakers to everybody in this, coming from the city, when they were looking for weekend homes. So what I would say is that if you look for homes that are a little bigger, ironically, or have neighbors, you're going to have less competition, and maybe homes that need some work, because right now design is such a premium, and being turnkey is such a premium. So you can still absolutely find homes that are really reasonably priced here, and like, they just are not going to be, it's not going to be like a sick A-frame staring at a waterfall that's been renovated. You know, it won't. It won't. Those are the homes that went up in price a ton and have a ton of competition right now. So, you know, a lot of people are talking about ticks, and I mean, a lot of people, but we got a bunch of questions about that, and I do want to address that, because that is the ticks. Oh, I froze. Am I back? Am I back? Okay, I'm back. I think I'm back. Well, I don't know what you guys heard in here, but we're working on it. Okay, good. Well, okay, let me answer the tick question, then I'm gonna go to contractors and building, because that seems to be a lot. So the ticks are part of life in here, right? Like, that is scary. I know a lot of people with Lyme disease, or, you know, managing Lyme disease, that's real. And we put Seresto collar, Seresto, it's Seresto collar on our dog, and like, I've never found a tick on him again. Or if we do, they're dead. So it's like this, and when I talked to my sister as a vet, and she was like, that is the most fail-safe one, like, more than oils or ones you give them as medication. It's just this like little dog collar that delivers the medicine through their skin. So I know other people have put, you can do these, like, it's called tick tubes, where they're like toilet paper with like permethrin soaked tissue inside them. And basically mice come and they eat it, and they go and they like, they build their nest out of it, and it kills all the ticks. So, I mean, I think it just is, to me, it's like a part of life. So I basically will like check for ticks, and I have 1,000 moles, so it's harder for me. So I check for ticks. If I find a tick that's stuck on me, which I have done probably 4 times, then I go to the doctor, I call the doctor, and I get, my doctor usually gives me 1 dose of doxycycline, like 1 pill. Other people get more, and that apparently reduces the impact of Lyme disease, or the chances you'll get Lyme disease, by like a lot. So I think it's one of those things that are, you know, you just kind of get used to doing. Like, you know, kind of keep an eye out for them, take a shower after a hike. I mean, you know, it's a thing. Internet access is pretty amazing, actually. So it's like, it's either you have it or you don't, but it's pretty amazing. And it is, you know, most places have gotten broadband, and there are fewer people using it, so it is super, super, super fast. So building or buying, building or renovating, I guess I'll just also, it's kind of like the Airbnb question. It's less about like life of here, so I'll keep that answer short. It is very, very, very hard to find contractors right now. They were already few and far between. Again, we're in a very rural area, and COVID, people are refinancing, they're putting in pools, they're building out a deck, they're converting home offices, and they're buying land and trying to build from the ground up because housing is in such short supply. So just assume that that will be hard. It just is. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about that. I'm looking at the other questions that we have. How to find the right town for you. That was one of the other ones that came up a lot and still comes up a lot. I would say that, we spent a lot of time doing Airbnb in different places, but then we ended up in a town, we ended up in Groningson where we didn't know anyone. Or we had never really been, except to go to Lake Minnewaska. So I don't know, there's part of me that thinks that like it kind of just doesn't matter. Like talk to your real estate agent and like look into Instagram. I mean, that's what I do, is I just kind of go on these, like when we're exploring a new listing, I go on Instagram and I just like follow the wormhole, and it doesn't take that long and I can get a sense of what's there and if it's the kind of place I'm interested in. And then if I want to delve further, I'll write to people and be like, hey, is this a cool town? Like, what's fun? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And I think it's part of why I like the idea of, if you're moving here full time, like not trying to find the perfect house for yourself, because if you buy kind of a starter house, there's less pressure for either the home or the location. And I don't know, it's just such a different life. I don't know how you know that in advance, what you would want. And I think that there are so many awesome areas here. There just are, so most places you're going to be pretty damn happy and meet cool people and like, build a community. And I will say one thing that actually is helpful to know for that is like 20-minute drive here is like around the corner. Like I think of that as around the corner, and I'll drive up to an hour to go to dinner and meet friends, whatever, because it's like gorgeous and beautiful driving and it's amazing and I love it and it's not like a hardship. So when you look at an area, if you're like, oh, do I want to be in like Woodstock or Hurley? Like those are 10 minutes apart, who cares? Doesn't matter, find a house you like. C. Davies, I don't know that I'll be reviewing earlier questions and answering later. We got so many questions. If you have something like super pressing, I feel like you should put it again here, and I'll look for it. I don't know what the pros and cons. I don't know enough about Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Connecticut, or the taxes other places. Property taxes are relatively high here, though, in my mind, and based on everything I've ever heard. So we tell people to assume for every like $250,000 of a house value, you could probably expect to pay around $6,000 a year in property taxes. So that's a lot. So I would say, and again, like to talk about the price, well, I guess I didn't finish my thought about the pricing, is that like, yes, it absolutely feels like panic buying right now. People who've been looking for years are like, oh my God, we just missed the boat. And people, like new people are coming into the market. People are coming, they're like shifting from the Hamptons, or shifting from buying places in the city to up here. There's definitely a sense of urgency right now. In 2 or 3 years, I just think the people who are going to be settled into working remotely here, and the new people who are going to be able to work remotely, and the area is like completely changing. Like when I moved here, there weren't like a lot of awesome restaurants, right? Like there weren't, like it just wasn't I don't know, like there were a couple, like, so that stuff, that's the like good and bad part of gentrification, right? Is you have way more options, and there are all kinds of things that are happening now with like food trucks and farms and things like that. So, Pine Bush in the 80s had sulfur water. So sulfur water actually goes to the next question of what skills do you need to learn quickly as a homeowner? Everywhere, I'm so glad you guys brought that up. That is one of the harder things to transition. Like I was used to an apartment being like water on, and like this was on or off. As an apartment owner, and I owned a co-op and then a condo, there were other things that were challenging. Here, almost every house we sell has a well and has a septic system. Whether or not you have sulfur water or other water totally depends on where you are. That's it. And you can treat all of it. So either the house will have a water treatment system or it won't, and then you'll have to budget for it. And if you have like a really serious sulfur problem, you might have to budget a few $1,000s for it. But it's like, it's not a big deal. Like, I have a well, I know where it is, turn the water on and off, we have a water treatment system, not a problem. In our place in Kingston, the water turns everything brown, which is like, you know, iron or whatever. And it's like, we just keep forgetting to get a water treatment system. It's not bothering us that much. But the water quality, none of this impacts the quality. The drinking water is great. It's like right from the ground, super healthy. Some people are even on artisanal wells, which are artisan wells. Oh my God, artesian wells. Jeez Louise, I should have had another cup of coffee. And septic systems also, no big deal. You have a septic system. Everyone has one. It's a tank with some pipes coming out of it. It's like not a big deal. You just have to like manage it properly. Yeah, everything has septic. And it's like, seriously? No big deal. You flush your toilet, go somewhere, and then you know you have it. Every few years you might want to, you know, you probably want to pump it out. You want to like figure out what these things are. But it's like there aren't that many problems with wells and septics. I wouldn't say, I mean, again, the inspector will look at your house, and every house stuff is always going to be going wrong. And that's true with your, you know, the well cap could crack and then you need to fix that. That might be $100 to fix it, but you know, you might need a new roof after a certain number of years, and that could be $10,000, $12,000. You know what's actually a good online resource, and this might be a good one for all of you guys. Well, I don't know how you join, but is Nextdoor. So Nextdoor and Facebook. They both are places that you can find people. There are communities of people who live up here and who like for little areas. And so if you're really thinking about an area, if you can like join, I don't know if you're allowed to join Nextdoor if you don't live there already, but it's like, that's where like a lot of people get help finding things like, oh, I need someone, a contractor or someone to paint my house or someone to put up a fence or whatever. That I'm seeing more and more in those kind of places. Yeah, and New York State in general has great water, true. I mean, the water in all of our beautiful reservoirs up here, that is New York City's drinking water. So I hope that we have good water. Gas or electric stove. So here's another thing that is like, it's not that big of a deal. You could just get a gas stove if you want to. It's like, when you do renovations on a house, it's so much easier than doing them on an apartment. It's just bigger. But like, you're not like trying to like put a gas line through someone else's apartment to your, you know, to your stove. Like, you're going through your basement, putting a gas line into your stove, and you have to pay more if you don't use gas for anything else. So you have a little itty bitty tank and they charge a lot for the gas for it. It's still not that much. Not a big deal. Do not buy a house because it has an electric stove. It is not a big deal to change it. Where to find resources? We're trying to have more resources. Yeah, that's great. So what kind of maintenance services do you need if you're not there full time? Well, what kind of maintenance people do you need if you are there full time is another good question, because it was one of the things again where I was like, oh my God, it totally takes a village to take care of this house. So it's like, we have, I mean, it depends on what you want to do yourself also, but we have a lawn guy, we have a lawn guy, we have a plow guy, sometimes that's the same person. We have like, we know several people who are kind of handy people who can like do some basic fixes of things. We have people who are more like contractors. Garbage is, unless you're in one of the towns or cities where the taxes are higher because they have additional services, by the way, garbage is private. So you pay $30 a month, whatever, and then like you get your trash taken away. Not a big deal, unless you're on a private road, and then sometimes it's a little harder. There might be other things, like if you have a really extensive garden and you need a garden, or if you have a pool. What we tell people, which I think is really true, is that like, if you budget $500 a month for all the extra stuff, for utilities, for firewood, for plowing, for whatever, internet, I think that that's a pretty good conservative figure where you'll be like, you won't be like shocked at the end of the year. If you have a humongous house and you have a pool, like that's going to be more. If it's a tiny house and nothing else, not a big deal. Yeah, so much so that they have to drive their trash to the local dump. Try calling the private services. I mean, maybe you do. Like there are places where you do have to take it to the local dump, but most areas, like even on private roads, there are all kinds of services that do trash pickup. You just have to pay for it. And a lot of people don't because they don't go that often. If you're buying a car and house, I mean, that's a question for a mortgage person, but like do not buy anything until you talk to your mortgage person. There's no sanitation. No. I mean, general hygiene, basic hygiene here, but like no, there's just like, the houses are too spread apart. So you don't have, I mean, it's not true. Like if you're in Kingston or New Paltz or, some of these other areas, there are sewage systems and there are town garbage pickup, but generally no, most of the houses, like I can drive 10 minutes to anywhere in Kingston from where we live in Eddyville, and we have a well and a septic system. Not a big deal. If you buy land and build a house, how much you pay property and land taxes on it? I mean, the property taxes are different from the land taxes. And people have asked about modular homes too. I mean, you pay based on whatever they think, what's the value of what you have, whether it's just land or land in a house. And the town assessor will look into that. And here's another real difference between living upstate and living in the city is like you can get to know the people in your town. So it's one of the things that we actually really recommend with buyers is if you're buying something or you're considering something and you have a question, you're like, oh, can I put a fence here? Or, oh, will my assessment go up and will my taxes go up if I put in a guest house or whatever? Call the town and ask that person. These are like itty bitty little offices. So you'll like literally be able to develop a rapport with that person. You'll be able to like talk to them, get a sense of what's really going on, learn about the area. It's really nice. It's one of the best things up here, I think. And you can ask all kinds of questions. So that is something that we always tell people to do. We really encourage people to do. So, flooding. I would say that, so I'm going to mention water because, so one of the things that that is true, and I say this all the time with buyers, is like, nature just wants to come in and like destroy your house. Like that is the job of nature. Like nature's like, don't like this house, I'm going to take it down. And you see houses for many hundreds of years that, where nature has not won the battle. But the thing, but there are things you're going to constantly be repairing and doing. Like it does not mean your house sucks if you find mold in the house. Like it could be that it's been raining for like 2 weeks and all of a sudden there's some mold. So you take care of it. You figure out how to do it. If it's something that you can do yourself, if you need a mold assessment and mold, mitigation or anything like more serious about it. But like, it's not like, I feel like when I first moved up here, I was like, oh my God, if there's mold in a house, you just like burn the house down. If the house is ever flooded, you just leave. And then I started seeing houses from like the 1800s that had like a creek running through the basement, and it was built to have water running through it. And the one thing that I did learn is that like, it seems like based on a number of inspections and things that, lots and lots of them that I've been to, that a lot of the problems actually come up when houses are too tightly sealed, when like there's too much insulation or something. And so then airflow isn't allowed or water isn't allowed to get in and out or whatever. And then that's when you create like different kinds of issues. But like we had these like horrifying things called spider crickets in our house in Kingston for a minute. And it was like having something from freaking Jurassic Park, like grosser than velociraptors. Like they were hideous. And I was like, that's it, we're selling, we're moving. It's gross. I was like 3 years in. And then I was like, okay, let's just like back to the basics. I have a company that we talk to that comes out quarterly to deal with any like bug things that constantly come up, and they just came and they dealt with it. No problem. That's it. I think so the flooding thing, so you might have to get flood insurance. Needing to get flood insurance is not the same as needing to be worried about flooding though. So that's where you really have to talk to find out more about the history of the home as much as you can. So we have a property right now there's like a billion showings happening. That's why a lot of my team is not available today. And it requires flood insurance. It's near the Esopus. But during Hurricane Irene, the water didn't get to it. There, trees were down, all this stuff. But like during an enormous hurricane, water never hit that house. And according to every, I was not an eyewitness, but according to everybody who was there, and there was no water damage found by the current owners when they went and inspected it. After Hurricane Irene, they actually changed like the way the creek was, flowing a little bit anyways, moving it further away from the home. But FEMA has maps that are, it's not like house to house, like they draw an area. So that's a house where personally, I wouldn't be too worried about it, because if it didn't happen during a massive hurricane and now it's better, they've redirected the water away from the house, seems like your odds of it being a problem are pretty small. But if you get a mortgage, you're going to have to buy flood insurance because the mortgage will require it. How much all the repairs end up costing, since it sounds pretty constant? I think that it's, I feel like there are rules of thumb for when you're renting a home of like you budget like 1% of the home's value every year or something. That's probably too much. But maybe over time that is what it costs. But it's basic. It's not constant. They're just medium constant. Like they're just annoying. Like when they happen. And I can say that like when we lived in a house that was 1,600 square feet, there were fewer issues than when we lived in our house now is almost 2,800 square feet, and we have like a separate garage, and this is an office that we converted here on top of our garage. So. And older houses probably need a little bit more attention. Also, it depends on how much you can kind of live with, So that's sort of that. How early do things close? Oh yeah, okay, good. So thank you. Someone just wrote that she took a home buying class and they believe it's recommended to say 1 to 3% of purchase costs yearly for repairs. Yeah, 2,800, exactly. So that's what I'm in. We're in like a 2,800 square foot, 150-year-old house. But again, like it depends, like we're sort of like, the water's turning the toilet brown, it's annoying. And then we don't do anything about it because we're busy. So we should get a water filtration system and we will, but that's different than like having like a window that's stuck or whatever. Or like, well, that's also something that we ignore. But like if you have I don't know, like if your roof is actually leaking, you have to deal with it. It's urgent. Oh, this is a great question. I love this. The garage. So the garage is a super interesting thing because I was like, you have to have a garage. Oh, and I will say also, because I see people asking about home buying classes, and I know that RUPCO, R-U-P-C-O in Kingston, they have some classes, particularly for first-time home buyers, and they have some grants and some funding and things. So RUPCO, RUPCO. This has come up a couple times too. I'll answer this quickly. So 3 months is the average amount of time from accepted, I would say from accepted offer to closing here if you're getting financing. It can be 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks for cash, but it's like you buy the house, you have 10 days to inspect, and then you do the contract, and that takes like a week or 2 weeks, and then the title search and the appraisals are taking a very long time right now because they're really backed up. Things take longer up here. That's another upstate thing. But to get to the garage, I was like, oh, we definitely need a garage because I don't want to like get snow off my car all winter. That's stupid. Well, I don't know, like basically I would say 90% of people I know here don't park on their garage because it's like not that big of a deal to brush snow off of your car, and somehow that seems, or like most of the time they don't. And then, you know, if there's gonna be a huge storm, maybe they'll pull in, but like somehow the idea to me of like waiting for the garage door to open and pulling in, and you know, just seems like, ugh, who's got time for it? Who's got time for that? So I still want to stick with like less of the home buying stuff and more of the like life stuff. We'll do other ones, I promise, on other things. And we have some on Instagram too. But how early things close, like nightlife stuff. Like these are pretty rural areas. So I'm sure there are places, I know there are places like in Kingston or Newburgh or Beacon or whatever that would have, or Hudson for sure, that would be doing things later. I have no idea because I go to bed super early, always have, and particularly do up here now, which I love. So I don't know, but I would say that you do a lot more socializing with friends at their places. So like when I'm up late, it's usually because like I'm at someone's house and we're having like a bonfire and having some drinks, and then we'll like crash in their guest house, like guest room or whatever, or drive home. So that, I think the idea that you're tied to a restaurant's opening time or other opening time is not as relevant up here because you do a lot of socializing with friends and houses. All right, I'll answer the question about down payment. Oh, medical care accessibility, right? You've asked that a couple times. So the down payment standard is 20%. People are having issues, you know, like there are issues with appraisals now because the prices are going up quickly. So you can put down less, but then I would still have cash ready in case the appraisal is low. Another topic. Medical care accessibility. There are hospitals, there are doctors, there are billions of alternative healthcare practitioners. So that is here. I think if you had like a really serious, I don't know if you have like a really serious issue, if you would just go into the city to find other kinds of specialists. But yeah, I have a great dentist up here. I've been too lazy to find a doctor, which was horrible, but I will, and friends have good doctors. Do places deliver? So for sure, where we live in Kingston, around here, they do. It's one of the reasons that's a good thing for me to mention. We're already at an hour here, but like I'm gonna keep going for a few minutes. So that was one of the things I thought I would miss the most. And it was one of the reasons we moved to Kingston was because I was like, I want more accessibility to restaurants and more access to restaurants and food delivery and shops and things. And really, like, one of the things that I missed and why we want to move back to Grohansson is having fewer choices. And that sounds weird, but if I think about like how I would like pick lunch when I was in New York, and I would be like on Seamless, like, do I want falafel? Do I want Thai? Do I want this or want that? Which was like awesome in a ton of ways, but I would spend like, I don't know, it's my own problem, but I would spend like 20 minutes trying to figure out what I want and seeing if anybody else wanted to order with me and doing this whole thing. And then we moved to Grohansson, and it was like, oh, like one place delivers, and do we want that? If we don't want that, what's in the house? Because we don't have a grocery store that close. My brain felt so calm. It was just so much easier. Those fewer choices, and I feel like there's so much research on this now, how much energy your brain takes to interpret information and to make choices. So to not have all that information to interpret, you look outside and there's trees, not looking on Seamless, felt amazing. And in Kingston, we now have more options, still fewer than we did when we were in Brooklyn, but it's still like, now we're like, okay, there are like 8 places that will deliver and whatever, and should we get this, should we get that, or should we go out here, or should we go out there? And then, yeah, it just is like, I need to like shut it down for myself, I think, a little bit, and go back to like, just being like, what's in the freaking house? Like, let's have some good food in the house. Like, there's nonstop beautiful farm stands. Like, I'm not that into gardening, and I can get amazing fruits and vegetables like the entire growing season here. And in winter, like, all I want to do is like have stews and potatoes anyway, so it's great. Oh, that's nice. Great care at Ellenville Regional Hospital. Yeah, I will say that, like, so that was one of the things that actually kind of freaked me out was medical care. And then I thought back to like, I fell down the stairs in a place near Atlantic Avenue, and it was like in Prospect Heights technically. And I just fell downstairs. I just tripped. I fell downstairs, but I hit my head on like the concrete floor. And so they were like, you got to go to the hospital because you might have a concussion. And it was like, it was a bad fall. It took like an hour for the ambulance to get to me, I think, ish. It took a good hour for the ambulance to get from that hospital, from where we were, to the hospital in Cobble Hill, because there was a lot of traffic. And I was like, huh. Like, in my mind, I could always get medical care in like 5 seconds in the city or be close to a hospital. But if I think back to it, that wasn't really how things worked. And a lot of things here are volunteer fire people, volunteer EMT, and your neighbors seriously know how to do so much stuff. So like the people who grew up here and who have lived here for a long time, like they just know how to do a lot of things more than I do. And so, you know, if I broke an ankle, like I would just go to a neighbor and they probably would know how to put a freaking splint on it and call the EMT or take me somewhere. Like it's really, really nice that way. It really is nice that way. Yeah, so I think we've already done over an hour here. Does anybody have any other burning questions, or does anyone from our team, you know, because on our team, we have people who are in admin roles and who are buyer's agents, listing agents, anybody else want to say? I think everyone's out showing things basically. Taxi accessibility at train stations. Yeah, there are taxis and Ubers at most of the big train stations. Yeah. Oh, Stewart doesn't really go a lot of places. Albany goes more places, but I just go to Newark or to JFK. And honestly, it's longer, but it's not hard. It's not hard. Like I tried doing public transportation to those places, but now I go to long-term parking, I drive, I listen to my podcast, I go to long-term parking, I park, I do my thing, and I come back. It's like not a big deal. The only thing that I do differently probably is if I'm flying back, my husband's English and spent a ton of time in Europe. And if we're flying back from Europe, when we're ever allowed to go there again, I don't get like a flight that, you know, I don't know, is like comes back super, super late because I have to drive back. Oh my God, do we have information on basic areas on our website? We do not have a website, which is hilarious. We will, it's coming, and we will have information about it. We have had some, and so look at our IGTV. We have had different videos on home buying and one with mortgage stuff. So that is that. To get on the wait list for buyer's agent. Jen, could you post that and pin that? Just, you know what, write to info@upstate-realestate.com. info@upstate-realestate.com. Yay, Estella heading upstate to look at 7 houses today. Yeah, it's awesome. It's, you know, what I can say is it's just like, it has been the most transformative, incredible experience of my life. And like I said, like I've been lucky enough to travel all over the world. Like we were deciding if we were going to move to Amsterdam versus like move to Kerhonkson. We ended up in Kerhonkson, and like I'm so happy. The only thing is that like our real estate stuff is growing so quickly right now that I haven't had as much time to, you know, to enjoy the lifestyle up here. So I'm one of the weirdos who ended up working like 25,000 times more than they did in the city. But that's kind of rare, I think. And I love this work and I love my team. And yeah, we're really thinking about how to get everybody more information, all these questions about different people, different towns, different areas. And what I would just say is that like while you're thinking about this, or even when you're thinking about it, just come up, stay at Airbnbs. I know they're hard to find. Stay at any Airbnb, go to towns that you've heard of, try places, talk to people. That's what we did. And I will say that like I thought after doing that for 7 years, I would totally understand how it felt to be a full-time person, and I did not. Oh, what a property in the mountain across from Cragsmore. Beautiful. Well, I learned how to drive in Aspen, so I am very familiar with driving on mountain roads. Just go slow. Go so slow. Just go slower than you think you need to go, especially until you're used to it. And I will say, I should get a sponsorship from Subaru, although I was just looking at a Volvo this weekend. But Because my car, it was my first car I was ever buying, and I was so scared. I was just like, what is the highest rated for safety ever? And I got a Subaru Crosstrek, and I freaking loved it. And I got it with all the bells and whistles, with like the cameras in the front, and the cameras in the back, and the cameras on the side, and the 15,000 airbags. And that made me feel much better, because what I've heard about Subarus, and there are other cars like Volvo or other ones that are good like this, is that, you know, they help prevent accidents, and they help you, if you are in an accident, they help minimize the damage a lot. So that was a big deal for me. And now I got a Forester, and I hate it, and I think it looks dumb. My car looks dumb. Foresters are cute. I got a terrible color, so I think I'm gonna be going to get a Crosstrek again. But yeah, I guess that's it. So we will try and do this more often. And those of you who are thinking about doing it, like I said, I would really just encourage you. I mean, I can't encourage you enough. And there will be times when you think it's like you made the most like terrible decision, and you'll hate yourself, and everybody will hate me and be like, that bitch told me that this is going to be awesome, and it sucks. And then you'll get up in the morning and go on a hike, or go on a walk, or just like walk from room to room to room and be like, this is my office, this is my guest room, this is whatever, and you will be super happy. So I'm really honored to share this with you. It's been a really important thing for us, and we are like literally like we are hustling to get listings right now so that we can get more people up here. And I'm going to say again, we're very committed as a team to figuring out how this will work with the community and not price local people out of their homes, or if it does, how we can manage that. And, you know, we don't have good answers yet, but we are definitely want to be part of that discussion and want to be held accountable as well. So thank you, everyone. Hope you have a lovely, here, I'll show you. This is like the renovated part of my husband's office. This was like a caca thing, but look, this is why I like being up here, right? This is his view from his desk. It's pretty rad. All right, bye everyone. Bye.